Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 8 of Vengeance of the Moon Knight, written by Jed MacKay. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. Now, following Marc Spector's heroic death, the Midnight Mission found themselves without a leader in the midst of a violent vampire invasion. So Hunters Moon and Tigra made a desperate attempt to break the Asgardian Moon Knight god Khonshu from his prison in Asgard. But to bust out of an Asgardian jail, they needed the help of an Asgardian crowbar, ably provided by Wrecker, a member of the Wrecker crew. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Reese, Soldier, and 8-Ball have been patrolling the streets, fighting off vampires and sheltering whatever survivors they can find in the Midnight Mission. But their resources are finite and the night is long. How much longer can they keep the Midnight Mission standing? They say moments like these come in threes, and the narrator is inclined to agree. Because within the Midnight Mission sits Reese and Soldier, patiently waiting for the next wave of enemies. And as they stand ready, Soldier asks if anyone knows just how tough the Midnight Mission really is. To which Reese responds by saying she hasn't figured out a way to ask it yet. Because a while back, Mark was going to try to blow it up before it came over to their side. But at the time they were lucky that it didn't come to that. But fast forward to today, and things just might turn out different. Because the vampires outside were just moments away from ramming a gas truck into the mission itself. So with 8-Ball out scavenging for supplies, the responsibilities of protecting the home front falls to them. With the weapon system in hand, Soldier took aim, and before he could pull the trigger, Dr. Sturman walked up behind them with 2 blood bags in hand. Because according to the doctor, the 2 of them haven't been feeding since they ran out of blood bags, so as a side effect, both Reese and Soldier have been getting weaker. At first, the 2 started to protest, but ultimately they had to agree. And as they drank the blood, the doctor reassured them that they were doing the right thing by saying that if the vampires outside were to blow the fuel truck up on their stoop, then they would be in even bigger trouble than they are now. With energy fully recovered, Reese asked Soldier if he had any plan in mind, to which Soldier replied by saying they must secure the truck, and by doing that, they would secure their territory. Which means the Midnight Mission survival is the primary objective, which means they can't be allowed to permit the vampires outside to detonate the truck anywhere within their territory. Now with the plan established, Reese and Soldier rushed out of the mission to meet the threat head-on, and at that moment, it happened. In all the horror, on a night when they thought they couldn't get any more scared, in a moment of absolute terror. From the night they were turned, they had been afraid of this very moment. They have been afraid to be caught in the sunlight. With the rays of the sun bathing them, Soldier put no care in his own life and shielded Reese at the detriment of himself. So with the gesture done, Soldier yelled for Reese to hide in the shade, but to their surprise, the burn never came. In fact, the complete opposite occurred. A moment of terror was turned into a moment of joy. To put this into perspective, Reese and Soldier haven't seen the sun since they were turned, since they met Mark, and since they became a part of the Midnight Mission. And as a member of the mission, moments of joy barely last, as Soldier blew past Reese and cut a vampire into 2. As the battle started to escalate, Reese noticed that the carnage under the light of the sun was way worse, because cutting down vampires at night was one thing, but doing it in daylight seemed obscene. With the race against the clock on, the remaining vampires in their haste attempted to detonate the fuel truck regardless of its proximity to the mission. Now with the vampire's finger on the pen, he was moments away from accomplishing his mission until his eyes shot open and a blade flew through the back of his head. And just like the beginning of the issue, they stated that moments comes in threes. The first was a moment of terror, the second was a moment of joy. And on the next page, we witnessed a moment of awe, for Moon Knight, Hunters Moon, and Tigra arrive on the scene. And like avenging angels, the 3 descended upon the vampire host and completely demolished them as Reese and Soldier looked on in awe. Once the bloodshed was over, Hunters Moon and Tigra stood victorious as Moon Knight turned to face Reese. And in a wholesome moment, Reese asked if this was the moment where they hugged now or something, and just like that, the 2 were within each other's arms. Now with the team back together, everyone shared in a brief light-hearted moment. During their reunion, Moon Knight explained how proud he was of them, and thanked them for taking care of the mission. But see, taking care of the mission was one thing, but freeing Khonshu and bringing back Mark was another. Because due to the enlistment of the Wreckers, the mission found themselves in debt, and owed the Wreckers a lot of money. But see, the money was of no concern, because by paying the Wreckers, they are able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, for they were able to stop the Wreckers from knocking over a few banks, and by doing that, they would be able to keep them off the board for a little bit. And as for the Sun, Marc and his team couldn't explain how that happened, because he wasn't a big picture guy, for he just jumped into fights and helped the Avengers battle against Blade. Because during the Bloodhound event, Blade was possessed by the spirit of the first vampire. Now with everything explained, Soldier asked Marc what was they to do next. And the answer was easy, for the next move was to take back their territory. And just like that, they all rushed into battle and scoured their streets. They took back their territory block by block, and all the while they protected their people and punished their enemies. And by the time the sun fell again, the streets were secure, and they made sure everyone knew it with a giant moon-shaped symbol placed upon the wall so all could see. Following that, we pick up with Reese talking with the doctor about the new gift of the sun. And eventually, Marc arrived and asked the doctor if she had any room in his schedule to talk. And to that, the doctor replied by saying, by what Reese told her, she believes that he no longer needs the Avengers' mandatory therapy anymore. But see, according to Moon Knight, their work was no longer about the Avengers because the work was now about himself. With that out of the way, we then transfer over to 8-Ball exiting a store with a bag full of food, and suddenly he froze in his tracks as he witnessed Marc storming towards them. And in a panic, 8-Ball started to plead for his life and stated he was helping now, for he was on the Midnight Mission crew and one of the good guys. Just as things started to look bad for 8-Ball, Moon Knight told him good job and walked away. So with that done, we then transition over to Marc walking down a hallway alone talking to someone not yet seen. Now during that conversation, Marc said it was just him and it now, and they needed to talk. And see, the person Marc was talking about was not the mission, for they understood one another. The person he wanted to talk to was Khonshu. And just like that, Khonshu's voices echoed throughout the study, as he told Marc that he wants the insult against him to be avenged. For Khonshu wants Marc to kill the Pretender, the Imposter, the False Priest. Khonshu wants Marc to kill Moon Knight. So with that said, this issue comes to an end. But anyway, down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.